Hello. All right, today we are going to get into finding the area of a rectangle, a square, and a parallelogram, okay? The area of a rectangle and square you have learned how to do since third grade. So listen, this is a complete review on this part, and the the parallelogram is not any more difficult, okay? However, I do suggest for you to understand everything with the parallelogram. Go back and watch that first video that I posted explaining the parallelogram and finding the area of the parallelogram before you watch this, okay? I think the video does an excellent job and is able to use things that it's a little bit more difficult for me to use on a screen. So anyhow, watch it and then come back to this video, okay? All right, now what I'm going to do is share my screen. And I have my shapes here, right? Okay, let's look at the very top of your page where it's going to be talking about finding the area of the rectangle, square, and the parallelogram on page 242. All right, on page 242, it says area is the space within a region. Now remember, we're talking about finding the perimeter, which was the rim or the outside edges, okay? So like with your rectangle, your outside edges would be measuring along, along this way, okay? All right, anyhow, do better with my finger than the mouse. Let's do them. And so the edge is here, okay? All right, that would be the perimeter, okay? Whereas the area is the space within. So it's all of this space within the rectangle, okay? All right, all that space within the rectangle. So think about a room, okay? Your walls would be the perimeter, right? Whereas the floor would be the area of the room, the space within, whereas the walls would just be along the edges of the room, okay? Understand? All right, there we go. So let me take away all of this coloring here. Ooh. Not sure what to do here. I don't want to mess up my, let's see here. Well, okay, there we go. There we go. All right, we got it. All right, now, so first of all, the area of the rectangle. Easy, easy, length times width, okay? So length here, width here, okay? Length times width. I'm going to take my length and multiply it times my width to find my area. Now, the key thing here, if you look at the top of page 242 in the second sentence at the very top, it says, the area of a region in the number of square units needed to cover its surface. So, basically what it's saying here is, whenever you write your units or measurements, you have to make sure to square those measurements, okay? Make sure to square the measurements. So with perimeter, whenever you add everything up and you get inches, you don't do anything to it. It just stays inches. But with area, when you find your area, you have to make sure you put square inches, okay? All right, or square feet, or square yards, or square centimeters, whatever you're using, okay? So remember that area, make sure you put your little 2 after your measurements, okay? So I have here for my first example, it is going to be 8 for my length, 5 for my width. So again, area is length times width. And you will use that for the rectangle and the square, okay? You'll use that for the rectangle and square. So let's look at the rectangle. I have 8 times 5. What's 8 times 5? Is 40, okay? Now, they don't give us specific measurements. They just have units, right? Okay, so I put units and then a U for units squared, okay? Now, let's look at the square beside it, all right? Again, it's length times width, or you can take the measurement of one side and square it. Why could you do that? Well, because if you look at your example, you have 6 units and 6 units, right? Well, 6 times 6 is basically saying the same thing as 6 squared, right? Because all sides are the same with a square. So for this, 6 times 6 is going to be what? 36 units squared. Okay? So make sure you remember, with rectangle, you just multiply your length times your width. With a square, you can do length times width, but it's still saying the same thing as squaring one side measurement because all sides are the same. Okay? So, and also do not forget about putting the square after your measurements. Okay, please don't forget that. Please don't forget that. Please, please, please remember. All right, here we go. Let's move on. All right, now, you watched the video for the parallelogram. So hopefully you understand basically with a parallelogram, get rid of this guy. All right, with the parallelogram, if you put a line down this way, well, try to do it this way, okay? It basically makes a triangle that you could bring over to this side and bump it over, and it makes an actual rectangle, okay? So same kind of idea, just a little bit different terminology. It doesn't have length times width per se. It's base times height, okay? So your base would be basically the length part of it, okay? And then where the dotted line is going to be your height. How high is it, okay? Not the width part, but how high is it, all right? And then again, the base would be your length part, okay? So let's look at the example here. I have 6 units for my base, and then my height, I have 3 units, and my dotted line should be on the other side, but it's okay. You know Mrs. Call does everything backwards, so we'll just leave it that way. All right, so I'm going to multiply it for my area. My base is 6. My height is 3. 6 times 3 is 18 units squared, okay? So taking all of that information and that knowledge, if you look at the next example, it is called a complex figure. And let's look at the directions there. It says the area of an irregular polygon is determined by finding the area of each smaller region in the figure and then adding the 2 areas. So if you look at that complex figure, you can see it's made out of 1 rectangle and 1 parallelogram. So let's find the area of the rectangle and area of the parallelogram and then add it together, okay? So first of all, let me erase all this here. Oh, it's supposed to be the eraser, not the highlighter. Okay. All right, so I'm going to come over to this side, and I'm not going to draw the picture. I'm not even going to attempt. Just look at it in the book, okay? All right, so here I have my area for my rectangle is going to be length times the width, right? And then my area for the parallelogram is going to be base times the height. And I want to find the area of the rectangle and then the area of the parallelogram and then add it together, okay? So first of all, let's look at the rectangle. The rectangle is 3.5 is my length, centimeters, times 1.8 centimeters, okay? And because I am taking 2 units and multiplying them together, centimeters and centimeters, that's where you would come up with the square, the 2, okay? So you may use your calculator and plug it in, 3.5 and 1.8, and it should come out to be 6.3, okay? All right, so let me make some more room here. I'm getting kind of crowded. Okay, so, but let's first of all, I kind of jumped to a step. I'm sorry. All right, now we need to do the parallelogram, okay? So the base of the parallelogram is 3.5 same as the length of the rectangle, centimeters times, okay, what's the height? 1.3 centimeters. Okay, so multiply out now 3.5 times 1.8, and you have 6.3 centimeters squared plus 3.5 times 1.3. Do that on your calculator, and you should have 4.55 centimeters squared. Then you add them up. So 6.3 plus 4.55, and what does that get me? 10.85 centimeters squared, okay? So that is what example 4 is about. All right, so let's go on to our exercises. No, I don't want to, I just want to erase this right now. All right, so number 1, look at that. That is a what? It's a rectangle, right? Okay, so I'm going to do my length times my width. All right, but how do I determine what my length times my width is? Because there's no numbers. I'm going to count my boxes, okay? So count the boxes across. How many boxes do you have going across? Okay, so if you look here and you count across, how many boxes do you have? Should have 9. 9. So that would be my length. All right, my width. So now again, count my boxes vertically. And you should have 7. Good, 7. So 6 times 7 is, or 9 times 7 is what? 63. All right, my measurements, we don't know. So we just do units. You can write out units if you want, or just do the U square. All right. Now, number 2, again, a very thin rectangle. All right, count how many boxes I have going across on the length. 9. All right, you can also, remember, make a dot for multiplying, okay? All right, now how many boxes do I have going vertically? 2. 9 times 2 equals 18. Again, we don't have our measurements, so it'd be units squared. All right, now number 3, I actually have all my information I need written in, right? I don't have to count. I even have my measurements, okay? So number 3 is a rectangle, and my length is going to be 5.6 meters, and my height is going to be 2 meters, okay? So let's multiply. 5.6 meters times 2 meters is going to be what? 11.2 meters squared. Like I said, you may use your calculator if you need to. This one you don't really need to, pretty easy. But if you get stuck, go ahead and use it on this lesson, or on this chapter, okay? All right, number 4. Now, remember what I told you about a square. All sides are the same. So you really just need to know one side, the measurement of one side. Oops, sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing. All right, it's 12 yards. Okay, so you just need to know the measurement of one side and square it. Okay, so what's 12 squared? Or 12 times 12? That would be 144 square yards, okay? So if you want to write 12 yards times 12 yards, you can. Either way, same thing, it's going to be 144 square yards. Okay? All right, now look at number 5. This is going to be a what? A parallelogram, right? It's going to be a parallelogram. So, good night, goodness. think somebody must have gotten into some fireworks or something. Scared me to death. All right, here we go. All right, again, with the parallelogram is space times height. But this parallelogram is flipped up on its side, right? So just follow that dotted line, and that is our height, okay? Remember, the side part is the base, or the length part of it would be the base, okay? So they have it kind of flipped, but in a long manner, but they still have it, the thing going the right way, okay? So if you look here, my base is 2.3 meters. My height is 2.7 meters, okay? Multiply 2.3 times 2.7. What do you get? All right, 6.21 meters squared, okay? All right, so hop on over to number 8. Number 8 is going to be a little